Marcus, this 2023 season that he was one of the most efficient running backs in the National Football League. I mean, top 5 in yards per attempt, yards after contact per attempt, yards per route run, missed forced tackle rate. Like, he absolutely dominated the running back landscape, over 1,400 scrimmage or over 1,100 scrimmage yards. But despite the fact that this is like, he just dominated efficiency metrics across the board at the running back position, I still think it's interesting because he still averaged fewer than 10 fantasy points per game, averages the overall RB 31 in fantasy points per game. Like, the efficiency can't get much better than what we saw from Jaylen Warren in 2023. So what happens if we start to see maybe, that workload increase a little bit and, let's say we achieve a 50-50 split in the backfield with Najee Harris, which I'll remind everybody, that's not the way that things were trending at the end of last year. Najee Harris was very much trending up in the second half of that season. We saw a number of costly mistakes from Jaylen Warren, some fumbling issues. Like, I don't think Jaylen Warren had as solid a close to the year as you might guess by those end of season ranks and efficiency. Could we be overvaluing Jaylen Warren a little bit for Dynasty? Because, Marcus, he's right now being drafted on average as the RB 21. RB 21. That's insane.
So you seem, or at least sound, a little bearish on Jaylen Warren. Is that fair?
Yeah, I want to be fair, and I'm a Steelers fan. I like Jaylen Warren. I like Jaylen Warren a lot, and what he accomplished this year in a limited workload absolutely just blew my mind. But again, as a Steelers fan, when I was watching those games at the end of last season, when Jaylen Warren was coming into the game in some crucial situations, I was holding my breath a little bit because he did make some costly mistakes towards the end of last year. Now, that's a real life football thing that, like me holding my breath when he comes in some of these crucial situations because of some of the fumbling issues, because of and they were costly fumbles, if you'll remember. But like, that is one of those real life, football things that can totally translate to a player's perceived value within their offense. And I think when you look at Najee Harris's trend in his carry totals in that second half of last season, for me, it kind of told us like their team Najee. And I do think that their investment in Najee Harris is going to be a limiting factor. Now, obviously, there's the Arthur Smith offense, which we saw, obviously very favorable towards the run, some frustrating usage for Bijan Robinson. Obviously, he had plenty of usage there for Tyler Algier. So I don't necessarily think that like maybe we're going to see a change in the role for Jaylen Warren, but I don't think he's taking over the backfield. And if he doesn't take over the backfield, then is the ceiling for him RB 31? Like that, I'm just wondering, are we overestimating? Because I mean, Marcus, the climb in his dynasty value overall, it's just been kind of a steady hype train. And I'm not sure if he's going to return all of those investments.
Yeah, the reason we named him the biggest winner is because of the exact reason that you're pointing to right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, I mean, just a year ago, his dynasty value was in the 200s, and now he's inside the top 85, right? That's a huge rise, especially for a running back. So that's
top 7 round draft capital in your dynasty league, which, I mean, that feels rich for a 25-year-old running back who is the RB2 on his team. Is he ever going to be a full workload guy? Because I don't think that he is a full workhorse guy. Like, I think Jaylen Warren, a very, very different running back from Tony Pollard, but I could see their usage being similar where, like, if he's relegated to a complementary role, we're going to see a lot of efficiency, but it might unlike Tony Pollard, that efficiency might not be as productive for fantasy football as we'd like. He didn't score a ton of touchdowns. Like he posted one of the most efficient seasons that we could have possibly imagined for him, and it still didn't pay off for fantasy. So I'm wondering, what is the upside?
Let me ask you this. Who do you think is the better player between Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren?
I might be biased, but I'm going to go with Najee Harris. Not
I think
necessarily in the beginning of their careers, but this past year for Najee Harris, like if you asked me this question at the beginning of last year, it probably would have been Jaylen Warren. But I look at Najee Harris's third season, and I'm very, very impressed with. There was a lot of development, I think, in 2023 in terms of the way that he sees the field overall, which I think was a big issue for him, was vision. And that issue very much, I think, corrected course this year.
Here's the thing. I think Jaylen Warren's a better player. I think he's the player that teams are more afraid of when he gets the ball. Yes, there's some mistakes here and there. I think he is the more dynamic player. We even saw against Cleveland this year, like that 75-yard run, which kind of got them back in the game. But I'm not sure it matters, Kate. Within the next couple of weeks, we're going to hear if the Steelers are going to pick up the 50-year option for Najee Harris. Just knowing the Steelers, I would be shocked if they didn't. I know that's probably not the smart financial move, but if and when they do that, that means that Najee Harris is going to be there through the entirety of Jaylen Warren's rookie contract, which probably just means it's going to nuke the value of both of these players. Like, I don't think Najee or Jaylen Warren are ever going to be top 20 running backs, and they're probably never going to be more than low-end RB2s because they're both just going to be on the field so much. So I think Jaylen Warren's rise has actually just hurt Najee Harris's dynasty value more than anything else.
I think both of their situation, their tandem, it can be a very productive one. And I think, especially with Arthur Smith, I mean, we might be looking at this offense in 2024 and pegging them as, a top 5 rushing offense. And I think what we've seen from them already puts them as one of the best 1-2 punches in the league. But that doesn't always translate to fantasy football production. And I talk about this all the time. There is a disconnect sometimes between the quality of production on the field versus the actual translation to fantasy football production. Because Marcus, when the Steelers are in these high value touch situations, I'm talking in the red zone, inside the 5, who is it that has the ball in his hands? It's Najee Harris. It is not Jaylen Warren, which I think that nukes his value. Because again, this season was already kind of the perfect. I think this season went as perfect as it probably can go for Jaylen Warren, barring an injury to Najee Harris. And you still didn't have a ton of fantasy production. Like I said, RB 31 in fantasy points per game. And that was under the most ideal circumstances. I am selling Jaylen Warren, even though the fact that he has climbed the ranks in Dynasty probably more than any other asset in the entire AFC.